Hello everyone, this is your 5 and welcome to Global Central Toy Review. And today, so you're looking at the 2011 release by Hasbro of the G.I. Joe celebrating the 30th anniversary action figure review. And today's action figure review, we're looking at Wave 3 of the G.I. Joe Renegades Storm Shadow, the Cobra Ninja. Now, I got this straight from eBay, and sadly enough, I managed to get this at $20 because I did not buy the whole Wave 3 set because I buy individual cards, which was my biggest mistake. I should have waited for the Wave 3 set to come out, but I was impulsive, so my bad on that. But still, it's better than other eBay sellers that is actually selling this for $25 to $30, which is a really insane amount of cash there. Now let's take a look at the front portion of the card. Here we have a nicer artwork of the Renegades artwork style of Storm Shadow, but it doesn't look anything remotely close resemblance to the Renegades animation version of Storm Shadow. The way he's dressed, of course, because this one dressed more like the 80s styles Storm Shadow rather than the Renegades version. Here, inside the plastic bubble, we have the figure. Now the figure comes, well, he's already placed with the full mask version of the Storm Shadow head and is equipped with the red sash and the belt itself. Now, what's great about Hasbro is that here, on this section here, we have the Renegades Storm Shadow look, the head itself, the alternative head, and at the bottom section here, we have the black belt instead. So, Hasbro did a really awesome job. If you want to be animation accurate, you can interchange the heads, switch it to the Renegade style and have him wear the red belt, and there you have it. Or if you prefer the classic Storm Shadow look, just like in the packaging art here, just remain the head, remove the belt, place this black belt instead. Very ingenious. Now let's take a look at the accessories being placed for this figure, and there's a lot, hence why people are selling this really expensive. In the top section there we have the katana, here a couple of shurikens, here we have a couple of cat claws or climbing claws, bottom section here is a bow, next to it is an arrow, here we have a couple of scythes, here we have wrist darts, here we have a couple of throwing daggers, here we have a nunchuck, bottom section here we have a fan, here we have, well, a sword, and at the bottom section, hiding from this, behind this card itself, is a quiver backpack, and behind the figure is a base stand with no catalog at all, which is really awesome. Now at the back portion here we have a full-on artwork of the Renegades artwork style of Storm Shadow dressed in the 80s styles, well, costume. Here we have the rest of the lineup. We have the Renegades Ripcord, Renegades Scarlet, Renegades Tunnel Rat, Renegades Duke, 30th Anniversary Techno Viper, Renegade Storm Shadow, Renegades Cobra Trooper aka Cobra Security Trooper, 30th Anniversary Iron Grenadier, and Renegades Cobra Commander. Now at the bottom section here is the profile card. One corner here we have the Cobra logo, code name Storm Shadow, name Cobra Ninja. Here his name is Tomi Saburo Arishikage. Birthplace, and did not list where his birthplace is. And the bottom corner here we've got a Storm Shadow's profile image. Here we have top corner here we have the Cobra seal stamp. Now his primary weapon we have a hand forged steel heirloom katana sword. Secondary weapons Ninjato sword blade, quiver backpack with secret door, arrow, bow, scythe, hand claws, throwing daggers, wrist darts with removal dart. Bottom section there is a small write-up stating Storm Shadow trained in the Arishikage ninja clan with Snake Eyes. When his ninja master was murdered, Storm Shadow blamed Snake Eyes and vowed to get revenge. He works for Cobra as a ninja assassin and is also a bodyguard for Cobra Commander. Very nice. So, without further ado, let's open up this packaging so we can molest the figure. Be right back. And we're back off the review figure and the rest of stuff out from the packaging. Now let's take a look at Storm Shadow's accessories, starting off with the base stand. Now, it comes with a nice little base stand here that's based on the 25th anniversary style with a nice little Cobra logo in the middle with two pegs for the figure to stand on. nameplate there stated as Storm Shadow, but I'm not too sure why this section here, there's a little bit of stain there. At the back bottom section of the base stand, stated at 2007 Hasbro, made in China. Now, Storm Shadow here comes with a whole slew of accessories, a lot of accessories. And the good news is, all of these accessories are all new molds. They are all new molds, which is really great. First things first, let's take a look at the sword. Now, funny thing about the sword is that the bottom section of the sword itself, as you can see, is painted in a metallic paint job, and the handle is painted in dark brown. What's its original plastic material color? I have no idea, but it's actually painted. As you can see, very nicely done. One is a katana, the other is a wakizashi, and they are both new molds. You can actually have the figure hold either one of them or both of them at the same time with no problem, or store it at the backpack, because the backpack actually has two sword sheaths. Next we have a combat fan. This is made of a black plastic material color, but the handle here is painted in dark brown. As you can see here, the figure can actually wield it onto the handle here. And no, you cannot fold the fan. We all would wish that. It's very nice. Nice details there. Next we have a pair of cat claws or climbing claws. As you can see, both is not painted at all. They are both made of a, I would say, metallic plastic material color. As you can see, Storm Shadow can actually wield either one of them or both of them at the same time for climbing purposes, or use it to claw someone, hence why they're called the cat claws. Then we have a pair of shurikens. Now the shuriken molds are actually based on the Pursuit of Cobra, Desert Battle, Storm Shadow. However, this version of the shurikens itself are a bit more thinner compared to the Pursuit of Cobra version, because the thin shurikens, as you can find on my hand here, is meant to able to slip onto the figure's fingers, so you can actually pose the figure about to throw the shurikens. Then we have a couple of throwing daggers. Again, just like the shuriken and the climbing claws, they are not painted at all, just pure metallic plastic material color. And new mold, of course, you got the handle, the dagger's blade, and the ring there at the end. You can also store the throwing daggers at the back portion, bottom section of the quiver itself, as you can see there. Then we have a couple of size. Now, for the size blade, they are not painted, but the handle is painted in dark brown. Very nice. Then we come along with a nunchuck. Like the size blade, the throwing dagger, the shuriken, and the cat's claws, the nunchuck itself is not painted. Now it's attached with the string from one end to the other end. Very nice. Then we come to the most delicate and probably the most tiniest accessory compared to the shuriken. This is a wrist dart. You can actually, as you can see, is a new mold and it's not painted at all. Same colors as the shuriken, throwing daggers, and the climbing cat claws. At the back portion, there's a small little hole. You're meant to store this item by plugging it onto this belt itself, the shoulder belt. There's a small little peg there, as you can see. This is the peg, and you can actually plug it in, and there you have it. That's where you store it. Now, when I mentioned about being the most smallest accessory compared to the shuriken, is because the middle portion of the wrist dart itself, the small little dart is removable, as you can see there. So you have to be extra careful when you're handling this accessory. You don't want to end up having it drop somewhere on the floor and end up missing forever. Then we'll go to a pair of items. A bowl made of a black plastic material color with no paint job at all, and an arrow. Very nice. Now the funny thing about this bowl is that you got the handle not in the middle, but depending on how you pose it, but this is how it's supposed to be. The handle is at the bottom, and that's when you place the arrow, it's supposed to be above the handle itself. Now the bad point about the bow itself is that you cannot stretch the string as if you want to pose Storm Shadow about to fire the arrow itself. So you cannot stretch the string. This is as far as you can go. And yes, you can actually store the bow. As you can see, this is also at the bottom section here, just like what I earlier showed. You can actually store it like so by clipping it. Yes, like so. Oh, didn't clip properly. Like so. Then we have the arrow itself. As you can see, the entire thing is not painted at all, just pure plastic material color, just like the throwing daggers and the shurikens and the cat claws. As this is all new mold, you got the arrowhead on the top, and the bottom is the feather itself. Now, come to the part where you can changing the Storm Shadow figure into either the Renegades accurate version or to the 80s style Storm Shadow. This is the Renegades accurate version of his belt, which is all in red, made of a black plastic material color, but the entire belt and the strap here is painted in red. There is no extra pegs or anything for you to store the wrist darts, unlike the other one. And for this version, this is just a black belt. There's a peg there to connect to this section here. And yes, everything is new mold, made of a black plastic material color. This is the tight knot. And for the Renegades version, the peg is located here, where you connect to this section here. To complete the 80s style look of the Storm Shadow, there's the second item, which is the shoulder belt here. Now this is the same type of mold that you can find on the 25th anniversary Storm Shadow, but the problem is that this is more heavily modified, because the back portion here, the original 25th anniversary version, is attached with the quiver box itself. This one does not have the quiver box and the sword sheaths. So you got the entire belt made of a black plastic material color, and the buckle is painted in silver. The other side here, you got a small little peg. That's where you place the wrist darts. Very nice. Then we have his quiver box, or the backpack itself. Huge old peg here to plug in at the back of the figure. This is the two sheaths that you store the two swords. You got the arrows on the top. The Arashikage symbol has been painted in red. Very nice. And you can actually pop this open, and you can see the details inside the arrows itself, inside the quiver box where all the arrows are located. And yes, you can store one piece of arrow inside, or even store in the bowl. There's a lot of ways to put it. And finally, we'll take a look at the alternative head, because this figure I place it with the Renegade's head first. Okay, because this is a Renegade Storm Shadow. Here we have a fully masked Storm Shadow here, made of a white plastic material color. And the flesh tone skin has been painted. The eyes and pupils has been painted in black. Very nice, all new head mold. Very nicely done. I really like this new design of the, well, I would say the newer version of the Storm Shadow's head. You can see the back portion of the head, there's a lot of wrinkles there as well. Very nicely done. Now let's take a look at the figure's paint job. Now, as you can see, majority of the figure's colors here is white because it's Storm Shadow. And if you have noticed, majority of the parts are not painted at all. But there are some portions of the body that is painted, besides the hands and the face, of course. First, the torso, the waist, the thighs, the kneecaps, the upper biceps, just below the elbows are not painted at all. They are pure plastic color. Now for the torso here, we have a nice Cobra logo. Now unlike the packaging where the neck joint is painted, well, with the flesh tone skin as shown in the packaging artwork, this actually shown that it is actually wrinkled on the neck joint, so it's actually wearing a full costume, unlike what is shown in the art. Now, as I mentioned before, the upper bicep and just below the elbow is not painted, but just at the wrist there, the white seemed to be a little bit, I would say, dull colored and a little bit more dirty, so they actually painted that portion. And for the hand itself, it's actually made of a white plastic material color, as you can see there, but the hands are painted in flesh tone skin. Now what's interesting to note is that, as you can see, thanks to the joint itself, so it exposed the white joint. It's not really well done, but what can you do? On the other side, it covers nicely because the joint is at the bottom rather than, well, at the palm there. Bottom section of the leggings itself is also painted. It looks a little bit more dirty as usual than the usual parts. So does the foot itself. Very nice. And finally, we'll take a look at the head itself. The head is also made of a white plastic material color, but the top section is actually painted, so does the face mask. Flesh tone skin is also painted. Side of the hair is painted in black, so does the eyebrow and the pupil. Very nice. But this is all you're going to get for the paint job because this is Storm Shadow and his uniform is always white. Let's take a look at the figure's mold. Now, everything you see here, including the alternative head mold, they are all new parts. None of this figure itself, none of the parts that you see here is reused at all. Everything you see here is all new parts, which is rather impressive. First, we have this version of a head mold based on the Renegades, well, the Renegades animation. Very nice. Both sides of the hair is shown now, and you can see the face there and the nose. However, I prefer this version. Most people prefer the fully covered masked Storm Shadow. As you can see, he is nicely done. The body build itself, the body is a bit more skinnier. There's a lot of wrinkles going on. As you can see, his uniform has been, well, tucked in nicely. There's a lot of wrinkles in the neck joint there, indicating that he's wearing a full costume. As you can see, there are a lot of nice wrinkles. Now, at the bottom section of the arms itself, as you can see, it's been rubbed on the wrist. Very nice. Now, what's really important to note, why this Storm Shadow is so popular, not only because they actually have a new mold for the figure itself, not only has a lot of accessories plus an alternative head sculpt, the fingers, two of the fingers, the index fingers, are actually separated, as you can see there. Very nice. It's separated from the rest of the fingers itself, so you can actually pose Storm Shadow with interesting, well, poses. Like, let's say if you want to place the throwing daggers in between the fingers. Of course, you have to work around with it. Very nice. It can also hold the shurikens in between the fingers as well. Very nicely done. Remove this. Or, if you want to be fancy with the sai itself, as shown in the Joe-Con images, you can have Storm Shadow wield the sai in a different way than usual. Of course, like I mentioned, you have to fiddle around with it, but there you go. Very nice. He can also wield the arrow like so, but like I mentioned, you have to fiddle around with the fingers, because every time you try to play around with the fingers, it tends to loosen up the fingers itself. But there you have it. Very nice. So the key selling point of this figure is the fingers itself. As you can see, the lower section of the legs itself is really baggy. Very nice, and the wrappings on the lower shin here, and there's a bit of a knot being tied. I really wish they actually painted the knot at there, the little bit of string, but still, this is still really good stuff, because considering the amount of accessories that you're gonna get, and plus the alternative head, plus the fingers that they did for this figure, with additional articulation for the wrist, I can understand why they skip a little bit on the detail paint job, and I'm still alright with that. Very nicely done, especially on the foot here. You notice the toes, the big toe there, and the smaller toes. Very nice. I love the details. It's indicating that Storm Shadow is basically, well, they don't have any shoes. You can see the details there, because you have cloth wrap all around the foot itself. Very nice. Let's take a look at the figure's articulation. The head can pivot up and down, side to side, and turn 360 degrees. Torso can move forward, back, side to side, yes, very poseable, and turn 360 degrees. Shoulder joint here can turn 360 degrees and lift the arms this high. Elbow joint here can bend this far, straight, and turn 360 degrees. Now, as I mentioned before, the wrist joint here can swivel 360 degrees for both sides, of course, but the right hand wrist can go inward and outwards, rather than this joint going on the other side, like the typical wrist joints that you can find on the other figures. So this one can go outward and inward, and the other one can go up and down. Very interesting. Hip joints here can move forward, back a little bit to the sides. Double jointed knee that bends only this far, so it's a little bit disappointing on that part. If you can bend all the way, you can have really awesome poses. And ankle joint here that can pivot down, up, and turn 360 degrees. Now, first things first, let's equip this version of Storm Shadow with the normal equipment first before I go through the 80s version. First, we wrap around this onto him. Let's place back the swords first. There you have it. This is the Renegades version of Storm Shadow. Very accurate to the animation itself, very nice. But what about the other costume? First, we have to remove everything else and pop this out. Place this on one side, have him wear the black belt. There you go. This, like so. Pop the head in. Pop this in. And let's not forget the wrist darts. There you go. As you can see, the wrist dart is nicely tucked in, like so. Now let's place the rest of the items, like so. Yes. Now I'll have him pose with the shurikens and then the rest of the stuff. This figure is absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Hence why a lot of people that are selling this Storm Shadow figure cost at least $20 to, well, $25. Rather expensive, but I would not even suggest anyone to try to get such an expensive figure. Wait until, well, I would say wait until the price drop down, because it's not really worth it for something that's sold for $7 in the US, and you're paying it for, well, I don't know, 3 to 4 times the price of the retail pricing. Thanks to the sculptors. As you can see, he's holding 2 of the shurikens and 2 of the throwing daggers. Very nice. Have him pose onto the base stand. Very nicely done. As you can see here. Overall, I really love this figure. Really worth it. Despite that I paid $20 for it, this is really worth it. I was quite surprised with the amount of stuff that he has here. Plus the fact that he's with the additional wrist articulation and of course separated fingers, you can do a lot of nice poses for this figure. Really awesome indeed. If I'm gonna give a rating on this, of course there is no finer paint details, but I'm still quite satisfied. If I'm gonna give a rating on this, either side of the figure, be it the Renegades version or the 80s style Storm Shadow, I'm still gonna give it a nice 10. 10 out of 10 for the Renegades Storm Shadow, or the 80s style Storm Shadow, of course. So I thank you all for watching. This is Lucy05 and I'm signing off.